Hello, ladies, gentlemen, everything in between and outside of the spectrum. I, Stone Productions, will be reading off a paper that I wrote in between classes today. This was not a prompt from an assignment. I just decided to make this off of everything that I already know. And due to the fact that I already knew all of the information, I did not need to look up anything and did not need to link any sources. So, yeah. Alright, let's begin. Why Going Nuclear is a Good Thing by Stone Productions. Cancer, radiation, and nuclear energy. Three big scary words that aren't always together despite what the media will have you believe. I'll break down each one of them separately, segueing from one to the next, but by the end of this paper I will prove to you that despite how much of a threat radiation sickness is, nuclear energy is still the way of the future. But first I need to clear up a misconception. Infections, bacterial, fungal, and viral. Many people believe cancer to be an infection of some kind, though this is false. Infections are when an outside force makes itself known, and typically in a fairly unpleasant way. Several symptoms of infections can be rashes/irritation, invasive structures, and diminishing/misuse of the body's resources. Infections can be caused by bacteria, fungal spores, or viruses, but they are not caused directly by cancer. Infections can be caused by cancer opening a wound and bacteria, fungal spores, and/or viruses getting into the wound, but cancer itself cannot be the cause of an infection. So, what is cancer? Firstly, we need to establish the difference between cancers and tumors. The definition of a tumor is when a cell doesn't perform its function, yet continues to consume resources from the body. A cancer is simply a tumor that causes more severe harm to your body, whether it be instability with muscle structures or attacking organs, like when the brainstem is damaged and destroys a person's muscle function. The term tumor encompasses all cancers, but not all cancers are tumors. What causes tumors? As already established, tumors are when a cell doesn't serve its purpose. This can commonly happen when a system in the cell is broken, which typically is caused by an error in the DNA. These errors can take a few forms, but first, let me explain what DNA is for those who might not know. Almost everyone is aware that your body is made up of a bunch of smaller creatures called cells. This is a term that I have already used in this paper. For this, it requires a long code so that every cell knows what to do and how to do it. This code is called DNA, and it is a very long string of parts, the important parts being 4 types of nitrogenous base arrangements that provide the information. Now, some of the errors when this DNA is copied in reproduction are as follows. When a letter, or one of the nitrogenous bases, is switched with another letter, when a portion of code is moved elsewhere, and when regions are fabricated or deleted. Now, typically, in natural selection, a mutation, which is a change to this code, is random, but only helpful changes get passed on to the next generation, with the unhelpful changes causing the creature to die out. Though, if you took a completely random letter in the code and swapped it with another completely random letter, the most likely thing that will happen is that the cell it affects does not function properly anymore and becomes classified as a tumor. If this tumor is harmful, then it is a cancer. What is radiation and why is it dangerous? Radiation has been the topic of science fiction and other genres for ages, with it being the seemingly elusive and dangerous force of the universe that is known to tear people apart or make them into monsters. Though, in actuality, we know a lot about radiation today. We understand its effects on the body so well that it is even used in medicine. Yes, I said medicine. Radiation is nothing more than a form of energy, like sound, electricity, and heat. It is commonly emitted from certain rocks that are very old. The thing about these rocks is that they are constantly decaying. What this means is that the radioactive force in them is getting weaker over the millennia. This transforms it from one chemical to the next as it becomes less harmful and in some cases becomes harmless, mostly. A good example of a chemical that used to be radioactive is lead, where it now no longer emits radiation but is still dangerous in high doses. So, that's cool and all, but what does radiation do? Well, for a reason I am unsure of, radiation causes your DNA to mutate, and this is a random mutation, which, as we explained before, in most cases causes tumors, cells that don't serve their purpose. Medicinal radiation. Now, in the previous section, I mentioned that radiation can be used as medicine. Now, this doesn't mean that it can be bottled up and turned into a pill that cures you of whatever, but it actually does have a much more interesting use. Since radiation causes cancer, and cancer can occur to any set of cells, radiation is used to give cancer cancer. So the cancer squared eats at the first cancer, and once the first cancer is dead, the cancer squared dies off. This method is called chemotherapy. The Industrial Revolution, fossil fuels, and carbon emissions. Have you ever pulled your car over at a gas station, put the gas pump in, and wondered about what the brown liquid called gasoline is? I haven't, but that's just because I can't drive yet. Gasoline, coal, and natural gas are all in a group called fossil fuels. These are created by dead things that existed a long time ago, with the element carbon getting trapped and converted into a more pure form deep underground. These are burned to create energy because they have what is called stored chemical energy inside of them. This is converted into electrical, heat, kinetic, and many more forms of energy. These fuel our homes, our lives, our vehicles, and much more. But they also have a deadly side effect. They release a gas called carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide leaks into the air and causes all sorts of problems. It traps heat from leaving the planet, increasing global temperatures by bouncing the thermal energy right back at the surface. It also pollutes the atmosphere, making certain areas harder to breathe in by depleting the total amount of oxygen. Along with this, these fossil fuels are running out. There is only a limited supply on Earth. When they are gone, they're gone. Energy consumption needs. The total population is ever growing. In just the last 2 or 3 decades, we've gone up 2 billion. And those people need a lot of resources. One resource needed is energy. So, the need for energy is rising, and there's only so much fuel to go around. What do? Renewable energy. There are ways of making energy out of basically nothing. A small machine called a turbine consists of a wheel of magnetic material spun by pressure being applied to a propeller and grabs the free electrons out of the air around it, redirecting them to a copper wire, making the electrical energy from nothing. The way these propellers spin can be done by a dozen different ways, whether it be wind, water, steam, or so on. Remember the term steam engine for later. Now, out of all the ways to utilize each engine, there is one way that produces far more electricity than the rest. Nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is really simple when you break it down. You have container A, where the uranium fuel rods are stored. Now, understand that fuel rods are not pure uranium. They are sealed metal rods that contain small pellets, which are a mix of uranium and oxygen. The diluted amount of uranium is used to control how powerful the system is, as pure uranium rods would be too strong and cause a meltdown. So, in container A, with the fuel rods, are control rods. Rods used to absorb the radiation so it can't escape and cause harm to the people around. A rule about forces of energy is that most of them produce thermal energy unless there is a special circumstance. The heat is funneled into a pipe that runs through container B, Container B is pumped full of water, which, when coming into contact with the heated pipe, turns to steam. The steam is piped into container C, pushes the propeller on a turbine, then goes down into container D. Container D has another pipe running through it, which is pumped full of cold water, typically from an aquifer, pond, or ocean. The pipe absorbs the heat and takes it away, the steam in the container cooling down into water, which then gets pumped back into container B. The whole process makes sure that no toxic sludge is being pumped into freshwater sources while acting as a simplistic steam engine. Nuclear fears. Many people have fears about nuclear reactors and nuclear energy. But in actuality, it can only go wrong if proper precautions are not taken. As long as we let the professionals do their thing, it should be all right. One issue that can go wrong is the control rods which absorb the radiation are not properly replaced and secured away. These need to be replaced on a regular schedule, but doing so is not hard with the proper machinery. Probably the biggest issue is if a reactor is not designed correctly, resulting in something going wrong. One issue that could result from this is overheating. All that needs to be done to avoid this, though, is having several people keep checking the architect's calculations and assure that everything will function properly. Just make sure you get it done right the first time. Conclusion: we as a society should make a move towards nuclear energy. There is a growing need for it, with population growth and depleting fossil fuels, and it is much safer than people often realize, with the only possibilities for failures coming from someone not knowing what they are doing managing the plant. With this information, please consider nuclear energy as it is truly the way of the future. Thank you for listening. This has been a Stone production, and that will be all.